Okay, good morning. Okay, this is Introduction to Excel. And the objectives are by the end of the class, you'll be able to create a spreadsheet, format a spreadsheet, use formulas to do simple calculations, sort and filter data. Microsoft Excel is a spreadsheet program used to calculate and/or sort data. Excel is made up of rows and columns. There's over 1 million rows, and there's 16,000 columns. Okay, so the first thing we want to go through is Excel components. So this area right in here is called the ribbon. This here is the File tab bar. This is the Formula bar. And as I said, it's made up of rows and columns. And there's over 1 million rows, and there's over 16,000 columns. So the columns are letters of the alphabet, A to Z. And when you get to Z, the next column will be AA, then AB, AC, and so on. Okay, and the columns, that's all self-explanatory. Okay, up here, this is the quick access toolbar, and we're going to go through that. Okay, Kate, you're welcome. Okay, so this is the quick access toolbar, this area right up here. And you can modify the quick access toolbar. This is on page 5 of your book. And Kate, I don't think I was able, I'll send you a manual after class today, because I sent them out on Tuesday. Okay, so this is the quick access toolbar up here. And you would put things up there that you use frequently, so you don't have to go to find different things in the ribbon. So to modify the quick access toolbar, you click this little upside down triangle, and that gives you to customize the quick access toolbar. So by default, on the quick access toolbar, you get save, which is represented by the little computer disk. Then you have undo and then redo. Okay, so I'm going to go and customize this. And this shows you what I currently have. And I'm going to add print and print preview. So now I get this piece of paper with the magnifying glass, which represents print and print preview. So if I click that, I get in here, it shows you what it would look like when I print it. Okay. Okay, I can add more things to it. Well, I would go to more commands. And the first grouping I get are popular commands. It's all in alphabetic order. So if I like to do maybe my page setup, I can click that, add, and now I've got page setup there. Okay. Then I can do more. I'm going to go to, first you got popular commands, then you have commands that are in the ribbon, and then all commands, which would include the commands that are in the ribbon plus the popular commands. So you can select any one of those. So I'll just take one just so you can see it. I'm going to say add. So now I have enable editing. So now I have enable editing. So if I decide, no, I don't really need that anymore. So I'm going to go back to my more commands and click on enable editing and say remove. So that won't be there anymore. But every time you open Excel, whatever you put in your quick access toolbar, it'll always be there. So you don't have to fix your quick access toolbar every time you open Excel. Okay. So I'm going to go through the components of the workbook. So right here, this column right here, box right here, this tells me my active cell. So it's saying B1, which is where my cursor is. If I move it over here to A1, it'll show A1. This is the formula bar, so this shows you what is currently in A1. So what I currently have in there is the word district. This is where I would insert a function, which we're going to do that a little bit later. Okay, down here, it shows me the name of this worksheet. You can have multiple worksheets in a workbook. For example, I keep track of the statistics for the department. So I have a workbook that has one tab is January, one tab is February, March, and so on. Okay. So navigating through the workbook, if you press tab, so I'm going to press tab, and now my cursor moves one to the right. Keep doing tab, I go one to the right. If I do shift tab, then I go one to the left. Okay, the home tab will move me to that first cell in the row. So I'm going to go to quarter 3. I'm going to press the word home. And I go to the first cell in that row. Say, for example, I'm going to go over here. I'm in cell E4. And I press home. And go to A4. Okay. Also, if you do, I'm going to go down over here. So my active cell right now is F9. And if I press Control Home, I go back to A1. So that's kind of a handy one to remember, because if you have a really big worksheet and you want to get back to the top real fast, you just do a Control Home. Okay. So next I'm going to go through what's on the ribbon in the Home tab. The majority of the things you're going to be using in Excel will be on the Home tab. So first thing I have is cut, which is represented by the scissors. Copy, which is the 2 pieces of paper. The format painter, which we're going to go through a little bit later. And then I have paste, which is the clipboard and the piece of paper. Okay, my next grouping is my font grouping. So right now it's saying the font that I'm using is Calibri, and the size of the font is 14. So in A1, I'm in A1 now. If I want to increase this, but I'm not sure how big I want it, I can just click after the A, after the 14, just click this letter A, and it just makes it bigger in little increments. And the one next to it makes it smaller. in little increments. Okay, and then you have bold, which right now, bold has got a shadow around it because that word district is made bold. If I unclick it, it puts it in regular font. And we'll keep it as bold. The next one is italics. So if I click that, it puts it on a little bit of a slant. And then I have underline. So if I click that, it's going to underline the word. So all it underlined was just the word district. So it's only going to underline the value that's in that cell. It won't put a line across the whole cell. It only puts a line, underlines under the word district. If I want a line across that whole cell, I click the next one, which is called borders. And I'm going to click for bottom border. So now I've got a line going across the whole cell. I have the word district underlined and then a line across the whole cell. You can have different kind of borders. If I click the little triangle next to it, the default goes to bottom border, but if I want a top border, I can click that and it's going to put a border at the top. If I want a left border, I can do that. A right border and do that. So, you can modify it any way you like. But border would put a line across the whole cell. Okay, then the next thing we have is the fill. So if I click that, it's going to make it yellow as if like I used a yellow highlighter. And then if I don't want it to be yellow, I can select a different color. By just clicking that little arrow there, or that triangle. The next one is your font color. So right now it's defaults to red. So if I click that, my font is now red. But if I don't want it to be red, maybe I want it to be whatever, I'll pick a brown. So now it's a brown color. Okay. Then your next grouping that you have is your alignments. So if I click this one, it's going to align at the top of the cell. I made this cell bigger so you can see the difference. So I'm going to click that. Oh, I'm going to click that. And now it put the word district at the top of the cell. If I want it to be in the middle, I'm going to click this one and it puts it in the middle. If I want it to be to the right, I'm going to click that and it puts it on the bottom, sorry, on the bottom. The next one is how it puts it in the cell. So whenever you type letters, of the alphabet, the alignment by default is always going to be to the left. And numbers will always align to the right. So if I want this to be in the center of that cell, on the bottom line, I'm going to click center, and it puts it to the center. If I want it to be all the way to the right, I'm going to click align right, and it puts it to the right. Okay, and then you have, I'm going to put it back to the left though. Then you have your wrap text. So that'll wrap it in the cell. So I'm going to go by this salesperson. I'm going to make a cell a little bit smaller, just so you can see what happens. So now I'm going to click wrap text and see it wraps it. So if you have a narrow column and you want it to, wrap, that's what you would do. And then the next is merge and center. I never use the merge and center because if you use the merge and center, you can't filter your data, you can't sort your data, and you can't do additions or formulas because it has to be a single cell. So if I combined cells A and B would be combined throughout the whole worksheet. So I don't ever use that. You know, I mean, the only thing I would think maybe you might want to use it if you were only had Excel and you wanted to write a letter, then you might want to use it then. Okay. Then my next set of groupings are numbers. So right now it's in general. By default, it's going to always be in general. But if I wanted to a dollar sign, I'm going to go over here to cell C2, and I want this to represent with the dollar sign. I'm going to click the dollar sign, and that puts the dollar sign in the 2 decimal places. If I wanted it to be a percent, I'm going to click the percent, and it makes it a percent. This is the one I use the most, which is the comma. So I'm going to click that one, and that just puts the comma in. And then your next one you have, if you want to increase or decrease your decimal, well, in my case, I want to decrease the decimal because it's a whole number, and all these numbers are whole numbers. So I'm going to decrease the decimal places. Now I can do this for the whole entire worksheet. If I click in between this A and the 1, and now I'm going to click comma. So now it put a commas in for the whole entire worksheet. I want to decrease the decimals. Oh, wait a second, I didn't need to do that. I want to decrease the decimals. So I click that. So now my whole worksheet is formula with a comma and the no decimal places. Are there any questions? Okay. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to go through is how you would download a template. Okay, there are many templates already in Excel. So you might, if you're going to go and create something, you might want to look and see if there's a template already made like that, so you don't have to recreate the wheel. So to do that, you would go to File, you go to File, and then you go to New, and then you could put whatever you wanted to search for a template. So I'm just going to take this address book because I like that one. So I'm going to click that one and say create. And now I've got my address book. Okay, so I can then go and modify this so I don't have to go and recreate stuff. So maybe no one had, I don't need anyone's home number. I just want their cell number. So I can go and click on here with column E and then right click and say delete. So I got rid of that cell. Okay, so then you would just fill in whatever you need to fill in. That can save you some time. Okay, I'm going to go back to that original worksheet. Okay, and downloading that template goes all the way up to page 13. So now we're going to go and do a header and a footer. So that's in my page layout tab. So I'm gonna go to this page setup down in here. These are just some quick access if you just know really quickly what you wanna do. But to be more refined, I'm gonna click that little triangle. And then this box comes up for my page setup. So it says right now for this particular document, I'm gonna print it in the portrait style. I'm gonna print it at 100%. And that's all good. The next tab is your margins. So this is by default what your margins are, but you can go and change them if you need to change them. And then we're gonna look at the header and the footer. Okay, so in the header and the footer, okay, when you get your book, it's on page 16, which tells you what all the different things mean. So I'm gonna go to a custom header. So the first thing you get, the custom header grouping, you get an A, which represents the font. Then you have the page number. You hover over and it'll say what it is. The next one is the number of pages. Then the next one is your date. You have a clock, which is the time. The file path. The file name. And then the sheet name. Then if you wanted to insert a picture, you would use this one. And the last one is to format the picture. So on this, I'm just gonna do the header. So it's broken up into 3 sections, and I'm just gonna keep it in the center. So in the center, I wanna put in what the name of this worksheet is. So right here, down at the bottom, says it's sales by district. So I'm gonna select insert sheet name. So I'd put this tab in there with the sheet name, which that's the signal to Excel to go and use the sheet name. And then over to the far right, I'm gonna put in the date. So now I put in a date, I'm gonna say okay. Okay, so now when I go to print preview, I'm showing the name up here at the top and the date. Okay. So to go back a little bit further on that, so I'll go back to the header and footer. So now I'm gonna put in a footer. And so the same like the header, it's broken up into 3 sections. So in the left section, you might wanna put what the name of the file is. So I'm gonna select this one, insert file name. In the middle, I wanna put how many pages it is. So I'm gonna select page number. I'm gonna hit the space bar, type of, and then hit pages. So that's gonna give me my number of pages. I'm gonna say okay. And now I'm gonna go to print preview. And now it's showing at the bottom, the name of the file, which was Excel intro, and it's page 1 of 1. Okay. Okay, so that all goes up to page 20. So now I'm going to page 21. Okay, so I'm gonna go to this freezing of rows or freezing panes. So I'm gonna go to this worksheet that's at the very end here. This personal budget. Okay, I'm gonna make this bigger. Okay, So right now, when I'm looking at this personal budget, I'm able to see January, February, so on, all the way to November, but I can't see what's in there for December. If I move over to December, now I have December showing, but I don't know what's supposed to be in this row 5. What am I supposed to value that with? So I can fix that by doing what's called freeze panes. So I'm gonna go into cell B5. I'm gonna go to the View tab. And I'm gonna go select Freeze Panes. Now when I scroll, see, I'm able to see all the months. When I go over this way, I can now see what I'm supposed to put the value in. So I didn't know at first what's to put in row 5. Well, now I can see it's wages. So the same with all these other things. Okay, so that's how you would freeze what they call freeze the panes. And then when you print, it doesn't freeze them, it just prints it normally. So now I'm gonna go to freeze panes again, and I'm gonna say unfreeze. So now they're unfrozen. Okay. So we already formatted the worksheet. Okay, if you wanna make, I'm gonna go back to that first one. That's sales by district. So if you wanna make a row or column bigger, you go in between the letters. So like I'm in between A and B, and now my cursor's got a double hatched arrow and a line. And then I can just go and drag for how big I want it or how small I want it. Okay, the same thing works for the rows. So I can do that and make my row real small. That's just a quick way to do it. Okay, that was on page 25. Okay, I'm gonna go to this next one. Let's see. Okay. So I'm gonna go and I wanna copy all these names from the east. I wanna copy them again. So if I go and highlight them all, and then I right click, and I say copy. Now I'm gonna go to row 6 and right click and say paste. All the people that were there from the north, it just overlaid them. So this is what you have to be careful with. So I'm gonna undo that. And now I'm gonna go by where we're in row 6. I'm gonna right click and say insert copied cells. So then ask me if I wanna move it to the right or down, but I wanna move it down. I'm gonna say, okay. So now I repeated the east people, but I didn't lose the north people. So if you wanna, and you have something you put at the very bottom of the worksheet, you don't wanna have to go through and sort it again, that's the way that you can do it. So that's kind of an important thing to know how to do. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the sales by district. So if you wanna add something up, which is what Excel is good for, so I wanna add up what these totals are for the first quarter. So on line 6, I'm gonna type the word total. And then I wanna add up what these numbers equal. So to do that, I'm going to go back to the Home tab. I'm going to click on here, this Auto Sum. So then it puts in a formula. Formulas always start with an equal sign. So what it's saying is equal sum of C2 to C5, and it actually highlights what it's going to add up. And that's what I want. So I can hit enter, or if I'm like to use the mouse, I can hit this check mark. And there I put in my formula. Okay, the next one, I can do the same thing. So I can go on that cell, right click, say copy, and move it over here and say paste. But a faster way to do it is, now I've got this flashing marquee around that 2612, and that means it's ready to be pasted someplace else. Well, I don't want to paste it anywhere else, and I want to get rid of that flashing marquee. So I'm going to hit escape. So now I'm going to go and take this, go into the corner, and I get a skinny plus sign. I can just drag it across. So then it automatically fills it all in. And you'll notice it put all the commas in too, because I formatted that whole worksheet with commas. Okay. So Excel follows the order of math operations. We're going to do some more formulas. And the order of math operations is, I'm going to insert another sheet. I have a blank sheet here now. So the order of math operations is, it's going to multiply first, then it's going to divide, then it's going to add, and then it's going to subtract. So mnemonic, to remember you how what that is, it's the saying that goes, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So please stands for parentheses, excuse is the exponents, my is multiply, dear divide, Aunt add, Sally subtract. So in this cell, I'm going to put in equal, because the formulas always start with equal 2 plus plus 2. And I hit enter, or I can hit the check mark. And that gives me 4. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so the next one, I'm going to do equal 2 plus 2, and times is the asterisk, times 8. And I'm going to hit the enter key. And that gave me 18, which isn't right. So what it did was it multiplied first. So it multiplied the 2 times 8, which is 16, and then added 2 to that to give me 18. But I don't want it to do it that way. I want you to do 2 plus 2, which is 4, and then multiply that by 8. So to fix that, I'm going to go in front of the first 2. Let me go there, okay. And I'm going to put a parenthesis. And then under the last 2, I'm going to close the parenthesis. And now when I hit enter, it gives me the right answer of 32. So if you ever want to change the order of what it's doing, you go and you would go and put the parentheses around it. Okay, so now we're gonna go and do a formula. So I'm gonna add another worksheet to this, and to add another sheet, I just hit this plus sign. Okay, and I'll make this bigger too. So now I'm going to enter a formula where I'm gonna do a loan. So in A1, I'm gonna type loan analysis. In row 2, I want to put the loan amount. In A3, I'm going to put the term. That's for how long I want this loan. And then in row 4, I'm going to have the interest. And then row 5 would be the payment. Okay, so you see how my loan analysis is loan amounts kind of, spilling over into cell B. So if I wanted to fill it all into BA, I'm going to go in between the A and the B, double click, and it makes it as wide as that column needs to be for whatever values you put in there. Okay, so for the loan amount, I'm going to do 20,000 because I'm going to buy a car. And then I'm going to take this loan out for 5 years. So I'm going to put in 60, which is 5 times 12. The interest rate, I'm going to do 0.07. Okay, so I want to format these cells. So for the loan amount, I want that to show a $sign. So I'm going to put a $sign there. And the interest rate, I want that to be shown as a percent. So I'm going to click my percent. And then the payment, I want that to also be a $sign. So I'm going to click that. So now I want to put the formula in. So to get the formula, I'm going to hit this little FX here. That's the insert a function. And then this dialog box comes up. So in here, you type in what you want to do. So what I want to do is I want to find the payment. So I'm going to type the word payment. And then say go. And I know the one that I want is this one that says PMT. And a little description shows up here at the bottom that it's the payment rate, N per, p-value, future value, and type. So it gives me a description what it's going to do. It's going to calculate the payment for a loan based on constant payments and constant interest. And that's what I have. My interest is going to stay the same, and I'm going to make the same payment. So I'm going to say, okay. Now this dialog box comes up, and this is helpful because it'll put in my commas and parentheses wherever they need to be. So the first thing it wants to know is what is the rate? Well, the rate is the 7%. So I'm just going to click over here to the 7%. And I'm gonna pay this monthly, so I have to divide that, which the slash stands for divide, 12. The next one is the N per, so that's the number of payments I'm gonna make. And that's the 60, so I'm gonna click on that cell. So I put in B3. And then it wants to know what the present value is. And the present value was the 20,000. So I'm gonna click that. And it shows me my answer down here, 396. And that's right, so I'm gonna say okay. So there's my answer. So that's how you would input a formula. And it shows the dollar sign. And you might be wondering, why is it red? It's red because it's decreasing that 20,000. So if I multiplied this 396.02 times 60, I would get the, 0 with the 20,000. So it always shows up in red because it's reducing the payment. Okay. Okay, so if I want to rename this worksheet, because my other worksheets all had names, so let's say I want to rename this worksheet. I'm just going to click where this says sheet 2, and now that whole sheet 2 is highlighted. So I'm going to type the word loan, and then hit enter. So now that worksheet is called loan. Okay. Okay, do you have any questions, or am I going too fast? Okay, Excel also has this function, which is an autofill. So I'm gonna go back to the sheet 1. I'm gonna get rid of this stuff. I'm just gonna delete it. Okay, so in Excel, this is built in. So Excel will automatically put in your days of the week and the months. So for example, I want to put in my date, my months. So I'm going to type January. Hit enter. Go into the corner and get the skinny plus sign. When I'm in the middle of the cell, it's a big fat plus sign. If I go to the corner, it's skinny, and I can just drag. And now it automatically fills in all the months. It'll also do it if I abbreviate the months. So I'm gonna say January. Hit enter. Go and drag. Okay, it'll also do days of the week. So if I type Sunday and enter, drag, and there's my days of the week. I'll make that cell bigger. Yes, you can drag to the left too if I want. Yeah, so like here, okay, I'm gonna show you. So I'm gonna go by here, this Sunday, and I can drag, and it'll fill it up. So do it either way, as long as it knows the pattern. Okay. Then I do the same thing with, I can abbreviate the days of the week. And I drag. Okay. Okay, it'll also do that with numbers. So let's say I put in a 1. If I go and grab this 1, it just puts 1 all the way down because it thinks that's what I want, but that's not what I want. So I have to tell it what my pattern is. So I'm going to put a 2 in row 2. I'm going to go and grab the 1 and the 2, get my skinny plus sign, and it fills it all in. So you can do any combination you want. If you want to do it 1, and then I want to do a 5. So grab them both, and it's going to do it in the 5s. So what it's doing is adding 5 to each one. You can do 100s or anything you want. Okay. Okay. Now we're going to do a sort. Go back. Okay, so if you'll notice on this particular worksheet, I've got all the USA and I've got a Johnson, I got Apple, then I got Johnson again, and I got Apple. Well, I want to put all the Johnsons together, all the Apples together. So I can do what's called a custom sort. So to do that, I'm going to highlight the whole worksheet once again. I'm going to go and click between the A and the 1. That's highlighted the whole worksheet. I'm going to go to this sort and filter on the home tab and say custom sort. Okay, so this box comes up and you notice right here it says my data has header rows, has headers. And this is checked. If that box isn't checked, it's going to put country wherever it falls in here alphabetically. So it's not going to keep it as a header. So I want to make sure it keeps it as a header. Okay, then I'm going to go and sort by, I'm going to sort by country. And I'm going to sort it on, I don't want to sort it A to Z. I'm going to sort it Z to A. So then the USA shows up first. Then I'm going to go and add a level. And then I want to sort it by salesperson because I want all the Johnsons to be together. And A to Z is fine for that one. And then I'm going to go add another level and I'm going to sort it by the order amount. And I'm going to do it smallest to largest so that way the smallest number will show up first. And then I'm going to say okay. And there it is, all sorted. That fast. Okay. So the last thing on the agenda is I'm going to go back to that personal budget. So let's say now I'm working on this personal budget and I'm going to go back and put back in my freeze panes. Okay, so I'm going to be working on May. So I'm going to hide this. So I just go where the letters are, A, B, C, D, right click and say hide. So now I'm just seeing May and so on, all the way down. But you'll notice up here at the top, because this might happen to you if you get a worksheet from someone and you wonder what happened, this doesn't look right. Notice how my alphabet, I have A and I have F. So that's my signal that there were columns hidden. So to unhide them, I'm just going to click on the A and the F and right click and say unhide. And then it brings it back. Okay. So that's it for this class. Is there any questions, Kate? Or something you were wondering about that I didn't go through? Okay. So the next thing I'm gonna show you, because I believe you have a Downers Grove. You do, okay. So I'm gonna go back. And I'm gonna go to our website. Okay, so I hope you can see this. I'm gonna go to our website. Okay, let me see. Okay, are you seeing it now, the Excel? I mean, the website? Well, I'll send you the links to this because my screen sharing's not working. So I'm gonna go back to the worksheet then. Okay, so I'll send you the links to that, but we do have what's called Book an Expert. And that's available to anyone that wants to come in. You know, if you're having a problem with something, you can come in with that. And we'll help you with that. We usually bring you into one of the study rooms or the training room and help you. It doesn't have to be a computer thing. Maybe you want to know something about genealogy, or maybe you want to know how you can download books to your tablet. So it can be any one of those things. And if it's something we can't help you with, we'll tell you that, you know, we can't help you. But we pair you with the person that's most familiar with it and try to book it on whatever day you would like. And then we also have training classes you can take with your Downers Grove card. Unfortunately, I can't get screen sharing to work. Okay, so you can do that. And I'll send you the links to this after class, along with the same files that I used today. So if you want to play around with them, you don't have to go and rebuild anything. Okay, so that's all for today, and I thank you for coming. And I hope you have a nice week, and it's supposed to be nice out.